Good evening. I'm Nima Rajan, and this is Forum Daily for Friday, July 29th. Tonight, we begin with a look at the economy, which stayed flat in May. This was much better than what Stats Canada's preliminary estimate was, that it would shrink by 0.2%. The agency reports manufacturing contracted for the first time in 8 months. This with motor vehicle manufacturing stalled by a semiconductor chip shortage. The preliminary estimate by StatsCan for the second quarter GDP points to 4.6% annualized growth. Now, this is up from 3.1% in the first quarter. Meanwhile, crisis lines have been busy providing mental health support for Indigenous people since Pope Francis arrived in Canada last weekend. The executive director of a BC Substance Abuse and Trauma Help Centre says it had seen about 125 people. This even before the Pope made his first address on Monday. After he issued an apology for the Roman Catholic Church's role in residential schools, Nola Jeffrey says people came in droves. Indigenous Services Canada said the federal government's 24-hour crisis support line has received double the usual number of calls. After a privacy violation associated with its mobile app, Tim Hortons is looking to make it up to customers. The iconic coffee chain says the proposed settlement it has reached in multiple class action lawsuits over the app will see affected users get a free coffee and donut. The proposed settlement comes after federal and provincial privacy watchdogs found the mobile ordering app violated the law. This by collecting vast amounts of location information from customers. Tim Hortons says it will also permanently delete any geolocation information that it may have collected between certain dates, and it will direct third-party service providers to do the same. The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled that sex with a condom is a different physical act than sex without one. And in a 5-4 decision, the justices decided that the use of a condom can be a condition of consent under sexual assault law. The court has ordered a new trial in a BC case. In it, a woman told a new sexual partner that she would only have sex with him if he wore a condom, which he did the first time, but not the second time. Turning to the Ontario Nurses Association, which says it is outraged and alarmed about the impact of a nursing shortage in patient care. The organization says it is hearing reports from its members about the expected closure of beds and units at 14 hospitals going into this long weekend. It is urging the government to work with the unions to find staffing solutions. The federal government's return to the office plan is getting some pushback from federal public service unions. They say the plan is confusing, disjointed, and jeopardizes the health and safety of employees. Greg Phillips is the president of the Canadian Association of Professional Employees, and he says he hasn't been given any rationale for why it's necessary for workers to start coming back to work amid the 7th wave of COVID-19. The Treasury Board of Canada released guidelines on hybrid work arrangements in May. It commissioned government departments with deciding their own local details. Several union leaders say that's created confusion. On the West Coast, British Columbia is urging people to be prepared for wildfires as temperatures remain high this week. It says the BC Wildfire Service is closely monitoring changing conditions and making preparations as needed. This includes the placement of crews in case of lightning. The Forests Ministry says 380 wildfires have burnt more than 13,000 hectares. This since the beginning of the wildfire season in April, with people causing more than half of the blazes. On the other side of the country, RCMP in Nova Scotia are asking the public to watch for and report human trafficking. They say Nova Scotia has the highest rate of human trafficking incidents in Canada. Corporal David Lane says sex trafficking of girls aged 14 to 16 is the most widely known type of trafficking. He says many victims are taken out of province and they are seeing lots of trafficking activity in smaller communities across Nova Scotia. Parks Canada says it's monitoring an anthrax outbreak in remote areas of Wood Buffalo National Park. The agency says staff have observed at least 59 bison carcasses in the park. A lab has confirmed the presence of anthrax in 3 of the dead bison. The park is the country's largest national park, and it stretches from northeastern Alberta into the Northwest Territories. Meanwhile, Scouts Canada members are giving a big thumbs up to a Saskatchewan park. Grasslands National Park near Val Marie has been named a hidden gem for camping by over 46,000 Scouts Canada members. This for its expansive skies and endangered prairie wildlife. After the break, we'll have a look at energy prices across Canada. Forum Daily's Energy Update with GasWizard.ca coming up next. We'll see you soon. Welcome back. Now we'll be taking a look at the future of gas prices in Forum Daily's weekly energy update with Dan McTeague, Senior Petroleum Analyst at GasWizard.ca. All yours, Dan.
Well, thank you very much for that, Nima. Another weekend, and this happens to be a long weekend for most of the country. So the midpoint really in the summer demand driving season. And I think for many, the fact that we've come down average prices in Canada of about $2.10 a litre all the way down to $1.75, $1.76 earlier this week, only to see those prices then move back up to an average of $1.80 may still be causing people to at least breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. And that's only because those big highs that we saw, Vancouver, 232, 233, now down to 193. Western Canada, although should have dropped even more, still in the 165 range. Ontario, 215, all the way down to where we are today, which is in the average of about $1.80 a litre. Quebec, a very similar situation, now pushing down towards the $1.95 range. And the Maritimes, even with their antiquated regulated system, still benefiting to a large extent in the 180s, 190s range. This is, probably as good as it's going to get. What we're going to see is an average increase. As we saw this last week, many people thought were very skeptical and heard from some other so-called experts. It's kind of a professional knock that would be it. No more high prices. And within 20 minutes of those statements, it went up 7 cents a litre last Sunday, another 7 cents a litre on Wednesday. It's going to go up another 5 cents a litre this Sunday or more across much of Canada. And that's because I think the world is shedding itself of the reality that recessions, lockdowns for COVID are a factor, as are rising interest rates. But what is undeniable is the fact that the world remains dangerously close, tight supplies, especially when you consider the foolishness of the Biden administration to use up its energy reserves in order to try to, at some point, take down gasoline prices. Now, while gasoline prices have dropped maybe about 30 cents, a gallon, we also see a circumstance where it's the same Biden administration that refuses to acknowledge that its green policies led to $5 a gallon gasoline, the same way that Canadian policies, which are far more severe, have led not just with taxation, but with a weak Canadian dollar, to the circumstance we find ourselves in right now, in which gasoline prices are about 50 cents a litre higher than they were this time last year in most cities across Canada. So the outlook and the takeaway, therefore, is look for higher prices. I think August will see gradually prices moving up. That will, of course, not just mean gasoline. Watch for diesel. Because of Putin's moves in maneuvers and Europe's unwillingness to frack its own natural gas, they now find themselves in a situation where any movement to curtail natural gas supplies from Russia magnifies dramatically. The alternative and substitute for natural gas, which Europe desperately needs, is about to ration, is diesel. And so diesel prices will likely go up. We know that natural gas prices are going to go up. Nima, as we go through the season and we shift from August to September, we're going to have to start to pay attention to natural gas and propane prices because of the scarcity of supply, because of ESG mandates, because governments are going around saying to big companies that are making billions of dollars, oil companies, no more producing that stuff. We want you to stop producing fossil fuels. They're doing exactly what they're told to do. They're not producing. They're making a lot of money with what they have, and they're making scarcity where there was once abundance. It's therefore eroding affordability, not just around the world, but particularly here in Canada, where we have the third largest provable reserves of oil and probably enough natural gas to keep the world going for a couple hundred years if we were the only nation that could get that product out to market. So all this is really meaning for Canadians, this is about as good as it's going to get. Following this week, look for prices to go much higher. And you can lay a lot of that blame at the feet of the federal government that likes to say it's an international issue because we have such an abundance of energy. Don't take my words for it. Even the governor of the Bank of Canada is saying he's going to have to raise interest rates because the Canadian dollar is not responding. No one's interested in Canadian assets. And as a result, our purchase power has gone out the window. Unfortunately, that's a telltale sign for the rest of Canada. And we'll have more to talk about this time next week. But brace up and fill up before Sunday. That way you'll save a few cents. Thanks again, Nima.
All right, thanks for that, Dan. Again, that was Dan McTeague, Senior Petroleum Analyst at GasWizard.ca. He's also the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy. All right, when we come back from the break, we'll be hearing about how the world's crypto markets have fared over the past week. We have our weekly cryptocurrency and digital asset update with Catherine Murray coming up next. So stay with us. Forum Daily will be right back shortly. Welcome back. Now it's time for our weekly crypto and digital asset update with Catherine Murray. She's the host of The Buck Stops Here, and she joins us now. Take it away, Catherine.
Thanks, Nima. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly crypto and digital asset update. I am Catherine Murray. Well, cryptocurrencies continue to move higher with the total market cap now at about $1.1 trillion. Bitcoin has moved above that $23,000 mark, so a bit of a key level there, psychologically more than technical, and is up by about 3% week over week. Ethereum is leading the charge and leading the crypto rally on a software upgrade optimism, and also as risk aversion eases. That, of course, is helping all asset classes, notably, of course, the equity markets, which have been seeing a nice rally this week across the board. And we're also seeing more activity take place. The CME, in fact, notched record crypto derivative trades in the second quarter. Interestingly, as well, when we think about adoption, because that's always one of the key areas of focus for the naysayers in crypto, BCG, or the Boston Consulting Group, is out with an interesting report saying that crypto will reach 1 billion users by 2030. Interestingly, as well, the report also shows that 0.3% of individual wealth is in cryptocurrencies. That compares to 25% of individual wealth in equity markets. So in other words, we're still at the very beginning phases of this industry and the adoption curve. Now, if you're wondering how to invest or which firms allow you to invest in cryptocurrencies, recall that back in April, Fidelity was the first major firm to roll out Bitcoin for 401k plans or your retirement plans. Now we're seeing several fintech companies also enter this space in terms of allowing you to have some of your retirement money in cryptocurrencies. And just as an example, Bitcoin IRA was actually established back in 2016, and that is where they allowed investors, individuals, to roll over their 401k or IRA plans and begin buying Bitcoin. Apparently, they have 150,000 users and about $2 billion in assets under management. Away from that, of course, when we think about firms continuing to enter the market, UK bank Barclays has taken a stake in a crypto firm called Copper. Copper is a way for institutional investors to enter and participate in the space because they provide trading platforms, settlement, as well as custody solutions for 450 crypto assets and over 45 exchanges. Their flagship product is called ClearLoop, and it connects the universe of exchanges in one secure trading loop. I say interestingly as well because it offers real-time settlement across a number or multiple networks. The reason why real-time settlement is important is because that's one of the key attributes that the proponents of blockchain and cryptocurrencies talk about. The ease of settlement, the speed of settlement, and of course, lower costs is also one of the key reasons why people would be interested in this area of the market. We always want to talk a little bit about regulations and where we stand. There's still a lot to be developed, and many proponents, again, of blockchain and cryptocurrencies want to see regulation. It almost is telling you that there's more and more of a buy-in. But right now, SEC Chair Gensler is really still pushing to get crypto trading platforms to be registered with the regulator, that of course being the SEC. So still more work to go there. Lastly, just two Canadian companies to talk about here. FRNT Financial, ticker is FRNT or Front Financial on the TSX. They showed some positive investment returns for June and also positive investment returns for 2022. This is their ARB focus, so risk arbitrage focused investment fund. And through that, they were actually able to sidestep many of the collapses. If you recall, only going back a couple of weeks ago, we have seen many companies falter because of the crypto winter that we've been talking about, the massive decline in cryptocurrencies. But as I've been saying for the past couple of weeks, we are seeing some stability. And now we're seeing a little bit of a move higher. So just some interesting news there. And also another Toronto-based company called CoinSquare. They did announce that they're going to be laying off about 24% of their workforce, again, due to the market conditions, which we know have been tough. And again, as I say, maybe seeing a little bit of stability. But we know there's a lot of volatility in the market, whether it's equities, fixed income, and or cryptocurrencies. So we'll see where we go from here. But right now, Bitcoin seems to be holding steady just above that $23,000 mark. Nima, I'll leave it there. Back to you.
Lots to keep our eyes on, Catherine. Thanks for that. For more news from around the world and from the world of finance in particular, be sure to tune in to Catherine Murray on The Buck Stops Here, Sundays at 9 a.m. Eastern, only on the News Forum Network. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back after a short break. An inflation gauge in the U.S. that is closely tracked by the Federal Reserve jumped 6.8% in June from a year ago. This is the biggest such jump in 4 decades. The U.S. government says much of the increase was driven by energy and food. Employees' wages, excluding government workers, jumped 1.6% in the April to June quarter. This matches a record high reached last fall. The U.S. government also reported today that consumer spending managed to just outpace inflation last month, rising 0.1% from May to June. Meanwhile, inflation in the European countries using the euro currency shot up to another record in July. This was pushed by higher energy prices, driven partly by the war in Ukraine. But the economy still managed better than expected, with limited growth in the second quarter. The European Union Statistics Agency said Friday that annual inflation in the Eurozone's 19 countries rose to 8.9% in July. This is up from 8.6% in June. Inflation has been running at its highest level since 1997. This was when record-keeping for the euro began. The economy grew from April through June. It expanded by 0.7% compared with the previous quarter. Economists expect that to be the last glimmer of good news and the region to tip into recession later this year. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky traveled to the Black Sea port of Odessa today. This was to watch workers preparing terminals for grain exports. This is where the first ship was loaded since Russia launched its invasion back in February. Last week, a deal was struck with Russia, Turkey, and the United Nations to create corridors for ships. This so that they can export millions of tons of grains that have been trapped in the country. Ukraine is waiting on the UN to confirm those corridors are safe. Back in the U.S., Secretary of State Antony Blinken is headed to Asia and Africa. This comes as the U.S. and rivals China and Russia intensify their battle for global influence. The State Department said Friday that Mr. Blinken will begin a 5-nation tour of the 2 continents next week. He will start in Cambodia, where he will attend a Southeast Asian Regional Security Forum. Both the Chinese and Russian foreign ministers are also expected to attend the conference. Moving to Tunisia, where people have overwhelmingly approved a referendum on a new constitution that gives more powers to the country's president. It's a step that brings hope to many in the struggling North African nation, but critics warn that it could return Tunisia to autocracy. Some people interviewed by the Associated Press this week celebrated the result of Monday's referendum and expressed support for President Kais Saied. He spearheaded the project and proposed the text himself. Others said they worry what the changes will mean for democracy in the North African country. The overhauled constitution gives sweeping powers to the president, and it weakens the legislative and judicial branches of government. Record floods in Kentucky have search and rescue teams backed by the National Guard looking through flooded communities for missing people. The floods have wiped out entire communities in some of the poorest places in America. Kentucky's governor said 16 people have died. Now, this is a toll that he expects to grow as the rain keeps falling. The Kentucky River crested 6 feet above its previous record. Entire towns that hug creeks and streams in narrow valleys were swallowed up. Mudslides have left many people marooned and without power, making rescues quite difficult. In Spain, the Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, is asking government officials and people working in the private sector to save energy by giving up neckties. He appeared at a news conference in an open-necked white shirt and blue jacket. Mr. Sanchez explained that he dressed less formally, not as a nod to the casual Friday custom, but to curb utility use. Now, he didn't say how going tieless conserved energy. Spain has sweltered for more than a month, with temperatures in parts of the country often surpassing 40 degrees Celsius. The government has urged people to reduce electricity costs by not overusing air conditioning. A $1.1 billion U.S. lottery prize will be on the line tonight as numbers are drawn again for the Mega Millions game. America's third largest prize is the result of 29 consecutive drawings without anyone matching all of the game's 6 numbers. Here at home, Canadian lottery players hope to win tonight's Lotto Max jackpot, which has grown to an estimated $40 million. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you could always visit our website, thenewsforum.ca, and make sure to follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also watch all of our commentary, programming, and interviews on the News Forum YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us today, and take care, Canada. Have a great weekend.